My name's John Thorne. I'm the Senior Product Manager at AJA. This year we have a really exciting announcement, of course. It's getting a lot of buzz. It's the CION 4K capable camera. CION can actually record 4K, Ultra HD, 2K, and HD resolutions at frame rates from 23.98 all the way through to 60 frames per second on board to ProRes 444 up to 30 frames and ProRes 422 for 50, 59.94, and 60 frames per second. We even have raw output via 4 3G SDI connectors that goes to 120 frames per second for ultra high speed work for super slow-mo. The camera's basic concept is that it's a 4K sensor in what's effectively like a Super 16 size body. That really means that it's a well-balanced camera that's practical to throw up onto your shoulder. You don't have to fight with it. Big thing too here is that this is an open architecture. That means that essentially what you have are no proprietary connectors. You have a lens mount that's PL out of the box, but it can be removed and third parties will make adapters for it. Battery system runs off standard 12 volt. The unit's been designed even conscientiously with a shoulder pad. Again, that's a removable item. If you don't like this one, let a third party make it for you. Give you some sense of the balance. I'm actually going to hold it out with 2 fingers. Right, not a heavy unit, right? Very easy to use. To show you how neutral it is, I'm going to put it on my shoulder. Notice that I'm not fighting the weight of the camera. It's not terribly heavy. The body itself is made out of magnesium alloy. That puts the body weight at just above 6 pounds. When I add the handle, top handle unit, I reach about 7 pounds. So a fully rigged out camera could be as light as a few pounds more, or in this case, several pounds more. To show you that it's neutral, not just front to back, but also side to side. You'll notice I can hold this unit like this. I'm not a terribly strong guy, so it's not a terribly demanding camera. The nice thing is the way I used to be a director of photography, this allows me to look around, see what's going on, ask for my lights to be adjusted, then I can pick my framing out. Very easy to use. So essentially, ergonomically, that was a big challenge, but it's something we thought was really important. So CION really has a really clean interface. The advantage of that interface is that it's relatively simple. You'll notice that there are dedicated buttons that become backlit when you want to choose a setting. In this case, the encode type is ProRes 444, so that's your highest quality. If you want to change this setting, you simply push in on the encoder knob. It flashes at you that you're in editing mode. Turn the knob and you can see your choices. When you get the choice you want, push the knob again. You'll notice it turns to yellow. Changes the encode type. When you want to exit the menu, you just twirl until you hit the word exit, punch it again, and you're out of the menu structure. That's how simple it is to operate the menus. You have dedicated items for the config, the media, the format, the exposure index, and white balance. So mostly you're going to be living in these, and you'll notice these menus are not very deep. If I go in here and twirl this, there's only even 2 options inside of frames per second. In exposure index, there's maybe like 6 or 7 settings. In white balance, there's like 2 or 3 settings. You'll notice there's playback buttons at the top of the unit, a status button that tells me what I'm actually recording in, format and frame rate. If I want to lock this panel, I can actually hold in on the status button, and you'll notice a lock icon appears on the screen. Now I can't inadvertently hit any of my menu buttons. The power button is also safetied. So if I take the power button and I push it, I have to really hold that thing in for several seconds and commit to powering the unit off. There's VU metering built in with adjustment controls that pop out. Audio control knobs, I can actually make adjustments on the back of the unit. And again, once you pop and set these, you're done with the unit. There's a headphone jack on the top. And you'll notice that, the unit's fairly compact. You look at the size of an Anton Bauer battery. This battery is a high capacity battery. Look at it compared to the rest of the size of the camera. It's significantly bigger than the unit itself. We can actually run on lower capacity batteries like Dionic 90s and Dionic HCs and power the unit because it's only drawing roughly 40 watts for for several hours off of a 90-watt battery, for example. So the body itself is a magnesium alloy. The advantage of that is that it's very rigid and strong. It's actually all metal chassis. But the big thing about having a metal chassis, of course, is that that strength and rigidity by using magnesium means that we don't actually have a lot of weight to the camera, but yet we're very, very strong. If you look at the top of the unit, there is a fan built into it. Basically what happens is the fan is drawing air, it circulates it through the unit to all the important components that need to be cooled off. And you can make adjustments to the fan in such a way that when you actually are recording, the fan spins down to a lower speed. That way you get absolute quiet when you're shooting. We don't make our own viewfinders. You can have third-party viewfinders from companies like Cineroid, Zacuto, Alphatron, Kinetechnik, and quite frankly, whatever else was announced here at NAB 2014. The lens mount is a standard PL mount, but it is removable. So third parties can actually take this lens mount and they can swap in whatever they'd like. That's not really something AJA is going to do. We'll leave that up to the expertise of optics people. It does have a back focus adjustment, so should you go in and you need to change that, you can actually dial in the back focus on a top door that's just underneath the top handle. Of course, you have a record button. Even when you're locked, that's the one item you can always get at. You get an indicator light here, a tally light on the top flashes for you. And of course, you can control it from triggers. It uses a LANC protocol. You can use any kind of controller or nice hand grip. You'll notice there are airy rosettes built into the side of it. When I say airy rosette, what I'm really referring to is M6 threaded, which has been the industry standard for decades. You look at the unit from the back, you get a shoulder pad on the underside. This is a sueded piece. Why is it sueded? Because we want it to stick to your shoulder. Think about what you have when you put on your equipment bag. A lot of times it's a sueded shoulder pad, same concept. If you don't like this, it's actually removable. Much of this system is modular, pick and choose what you want. We record to our onboard media, which is PAC media. We used it successfully in the KeyPro Quad product. Here we're using it again. It's an SSD-based storage system. I'm going to actually remove it and show you what it looks like. Unlock my media. I gracefully can eject the media by simply holding down this unmounting of the media button. You'll notice the media is now unmounted. The indicator light is out. I can safely pull the media. If you look at this media, it's essentially an armored piece of media. I wouldn't have any problem throwing this on the ground right now. Solid state, indicator light built into it. If you look at the other end of it, it's a multi-insertion rated connector, very important. A regular SATA, like a computer drive, is really only rated for about 50 insertions. This is rated for 10,000 plus insertions. So you've got ruggedized media that you can take with you, fits in your back pocket. It mounts automatically. We just slide it in. It's also keyed, so it won't go in backwards. You can't make a mistake with the media. You just put the media in, locks into place. You'll notice the indicator light just turned on, and there's a media mounting indication. Comes up very quickly. So one of the interesting things that we did to help with sort of the ergonomics and functionality is we actually have front-mounted output jacks. So we have an SDI monitor jack. It comes up this way and can feed my onboard monitors or viewfinders. There's also a power output jack, which is rather unusual. That means I don't have to cable all the way from the back of the camera. I can cable from the top, front, and use these nice, short, tidy cables. I also have the LANC connector on the top. This is a trigger, so I can actually go and record off of that. I have a LANC on the side, so I can use a nice grip and trigger off of that as well. We also have dedicated balanced analog audio connectors. They each have their own separate line mic and phantom switch. So I could even get a feed from a microphone on a shoe mount, cold shoe mount for example, set that to phantom power. My other one I could actually set to line and get a line feed from a mixer for example. So I have a top mounted HDMI connector. I also have a rear mounted one. The difference is this one's 2K and 1080 only. The one in the rear is actually 4K capable. So you really have, when you're fired up and you're working in HD, you have like 5 video outputs. You have 4x3G SDIs to drive 4K. You have an SDI monitor front and rear, and you have an HDMI monitor front and rear of the unit. In addition to video connectivity and audio connectivity, there's a provision for timecode. So we have LTC. We have a ref-in connector for gen locking the camera in situations such as multicam. And we have a USB connector that can be used to actually power third-party accessories. So for example, you can actually do something like run an assistance light, a little light that can be plugged in for USB and run it up to the front. In the good old days, that would have been several $100s. Now you could go and get a simple one from a computer store for 20 bucks. If we look at the back of the unit,
that's my opinion.
look at the back of the unit.
And as crazy as it sounds, I like.
There's a battery 2-pin power supply that comes out of the back of the unit. Here, I'll kick it up for you a little bit better. There you go. So a battery plate that comes in the box with the product. Then you pick out the battery adapter plate you want. So that means you can run Anton Bauer style, you can run V-mount, anything like that. The LAN connector is a DIT's dream. Lets you connect it to a host computer, control the unit, and you even get a small preview picture. If you look at the 12 to 18 volt connection, that's a standard 4-pin. You could even use a battery plate if you wanted. We supply it with an AC/DC power supply. So that means if you're doing a studio shoot, like we're sort of showing in the setup we have in the booth here at AJA this year, you can run it off of AC power all day long. The Thunderbolt connector is another way for you to get raw data out of the camera. So you can do 4K up to 30 frames per second, stream that out to, say, a MacBook Pro with something like a Thunderbolt RAID, and that'll allow you to capture that off to the system. If you use the 4 times BNCs with 3G SDI, you can do 4K 2398 all the way up to 120 frames per second. So for super slow-mo applications, that's really a boom for the product. And that's just a quick overview of all the connectivity on the product.